Peter Pan and Wendy, my rant review. Okay, so before we get into this, and believe me, I got a few things to say about this film, I would like to ask you, if you have not seen this movie and you don't know why, but if you really want to see it, stop the review right now and click away. If you have not seen it and are curious about it and you don't mind negative reviews, well then follow me, my friends, because right now I am not happy with this film. For the most part, the opening of the film is pretty much the same as your 1953 animated series, where Wendy, Michael, and John are playing Peter Pan in their room, except in this case, Wendy gets carried away and breaks a window or a glass, and Dad tells her to stop playing, act your age, and because the only difference here is that instead of being kicked out of the nursery and sent to her own room, she is being sent off to boarding school, which obviously has her upset because she doesn't want to grow up. Now this part right here really confuses the heck out of me. For some reason, Tinkerbell decides in the middle of Wendy, John, and Michael sleeping, she's going to fly into the room, sprinkle pixie dust on Wendy, and she starts levitating across the room when all of a sudden her brother captures her. Now, as for the controversy regarding Tinkerbell, I really don't see much of an issue in this. She did her part well, and I don't think that's a problem. My big issue was a couple of things with this film, and believe me, this film is so boring, dull, it drags on, and it's dark and nothing like the 1953 version. Basic story is the same thing as before. Peter's shadow goes into their house, and he's got to try and capture it, and Wendy sews it back on, and they're off to Neverland. But the problem I have with Peter here, at least from what I see, is when he's not being brave and adventurous, he's cowardly. I mean, look at this picture right here. He's cowardly because for some reason he was he was stepping on the stairs, and he stepped on something and said, "Ow, that hurt. Are you trying to stab my heart?" Peter Pan explains to them that he's going to take them off to Neverland, sprinkle pixie dust on them, and off they go. There is nothing magical about this scene at all. There's nothing, it's faith, trust in pixie dust, and off they go. But it loses the magic that the 1953 presented. The real issue that I have with this story has to deal with Captain Hook, Peter Pan, and Wendy. Yeah, I know they're the basic characters of the story, but they have really changed this thing around to it's not even recognizable anymore. Peter Pan is a wuss. Captain Hook is just a crybaby out for revenge. It's a dark, sinister story. And Wendy, along with Tiger Lily, go out of their way, it seems to me, to tell Peter Pan that he can't do anything without girls. Now, as his crew goes, of the Jolly Roger, it's a pretty good cast we've got right here. The makeup and the clothing, that looks great. I really did like this. Like the original, when the crew of the Jolly Rogers sees them, Tinkerbell, Peter Pan, and Wendy and her brothers flying off to Neverland, they fire cannons at them. And in this case, Peter does not tell Tinkerbell to take the boys and Wendy to find the lost boys. No, and Tinkerbell doesn't do anything to try to kill Wendy, because that's the one thing they have removed from here. There is no animosity between Tinkerbell and Wendy. It's just Wendy can't understand Tinkerbell's language, and that's a big frustration of the whole plot of the story. After separating from Peter, she winds up crashing into the water on the beach at Neverland, and then meets up with the charming Lost Boys, along with Tiger Lily. And apparently Peter already informed them that he was going after Wendy for storytelling, because they kept asking, "Are you Wendy? Are you Wendy?" And as many others have complained before, these two do not belong in this at all. It is called the Lost Boys. And why are there no lost girls? Well, according to Peter, girls are too clever to fall out of their prangs, unlike boys. Prams, excuse me, not pranks. But the point is, Disney believes it is okay to change stories around so much that way we can make everyone feel all-inclusive, ignoring the story itself. The problem that I really have with the story is the darkness behind it, in the fact that in the 1953 version, you could sit down with your little kids, and even if you had to walk away for a little while, nothing really bad would happen that your kids would be scared of. This particular film right here is so dark and just so mean-spirited that it's just, I cannot recommend this for any parent to put in front of their children. Even my 14-year-old was questioning some of this. Now, this scene right here dealing with Hook and Tick-Tock Croc is about the same thing you would find in the 1953 version, but it's what happens next that I think they just get a little carried away with it, and it's too dark. Like this scene right here where Hook and the crew are trying to get away from Tick-Tock, and he's just going in and ravaging the crew. And the camera fades away from the crocodile, but you can hear the screams as the Tick-Tock kills them off. Wendy has always loved Peter Pan and wanted to go on all these epic adventures with him, and she's read all the stories about what Peter has done between the Lost Boys, Tiger Lily and the Indians, and Captain Hook. And in this scene right here, she's ticked off so much that she takes a swing at Peter. And once again, our beloved Peter Pan comes across looking like a little bit of a crybaby. "Oh, she hit me." She can't stand Peter and shows him so much disrespect. Even her brothers are starting to complain about the adventure they're on. Peter Pan goes off telling them that he's Peter Pan and he is never going to lose. He will never die. Both Tiger Lily and Wendy jump on him about how he's always going to need their help because he can't do it all alone. One day you will need our help. And as usual, Disney has taken the beloved Peter Pan, that's the great adventurer, and turned him into a wimpy boy who needs girls to save him, which is what happens in this movie. As for Hook and his hatred for Peter, it is deeper, apparently, than what we've always been told. It's not just that Hook and his pirates came to Neverland and Peter and Hook fought and Peter cut off his hand and fed it to the crocodile. No, it's deeper than that in this story. It seems that James Hook was a child of Neverland. We find out that, again, he was a child of Neverland, but it was because Peter didn't like the fact that James was always crying that he missed his mom, so Peter vanished him from Neverland, where he drifted forever out in the ocean until he was rescued by pirates. Not any pirates, but one pirate in particular. A younger Mr. Smee would raise him as a pirate, and then Hook would become their captain, and they would go back to Neverland to hunt down Peter. In the original movie, when Hook found where the Lost Boys were, he planted a bomb so that when Peter came back, it would explode and kill him off. In this one, Hook slices him with his sword, and Peter falls to what looks to be his death. Peter's shadow goes off to Tiger Lily to get help. And if you're looking for the Indians, this is about as much as you're going to get from them. It seems to me like the bulk of this movie has to deal with Tiger Lily and Wendy saving Peter Pan from danger, not so much the heroic boy we're all used to. Tinkerbell saves Wendy. Tiger Lily helps Peter ride off to fight the pirates. Wendy saves Peter from falling off the ship. Peter apologizes to Hook for all the bad things he's done, and to James for all the bad things he did to him too, and not being a good friend. Hook's not buying it. He's pretty much telling him, "I'm not accepting the apology. This is not how it's supposed to end." And Peter cries, "But this isn't fun anymore." And Hook yells, "This is not about fun." And once again, Wendy is there to save Peter. And as Hook gets ready to fall off the ship, Pan grabs his hook and tells him to think a happy thought and everything will be fine, and Hook just smiles and says, "I don't have any happy thoughts," and falls into the ocean. And Peter starts sobbing because he lost his dear friend, and all the boys around him are going, "But we are friends too." "Yes, but he was my dearest friend." And Wendy looks down at Peter and says, "Don't you think it's time we get these boys home?" And so it also turns out that the very same house that Wendy has grown up in is the same home that Peter lived in. And one night his mother scolded him, so he ran away and swore he'd never come back. She tries to convince him to stay and grow up there, but he's not having it. He's not ready for it yet. And he sobs and cries and then flies off. Okay, so I wanted to come into this with an open mind, but after watching it, I am now more convinced than ever that this was a terrible movie. And I do not recommend it for anyone. The 1953 version was, yeah, I know the animation for today's kids is kind of dull, but I mean, it was more of a bright adventure, positive, than it was negative. Silliness, yes, but it had nothing dark about it, which is what this is really all about. Not to mention the fact, it gives me the impression that they are more interested in propping up the women of the story, mainly Wendy, and putting down Peter, which was what the story was about. Wendy went off to Neverland with Peter because he offered her adventures that she's read so much about. And this just was a bad interpretation of it. So, tell me what you think. I know I basically talked about Peter Pan, Captain Hook, and Wendy, but the basic story is there. It's just very dark, and I did not like this. So, give me your thoughts, drop below your comments, and let me know. And until the next time, my friends,